Okay, let's say that tomorrow afternoon you get an emergency alert text on your phone. And it says tune into a special broadcast, yada, yada, yada. So you tune into this broadcast, and the president comes on, and he's got all these other world leaders with him. And they announce that there's a comet that has just come around the limb of the sun, which we couldn't spot until now, which is on a direct trajectory for Earth. And this thing is, say, 50 miles wide, 100 miles wide. The consensus is that this is an extinction level event. And now this is, of course, all hypothetical because A, world leaders would never tell you shit. And B, we might not even see something till it was too close already. But let's just set all that aside. Let's say that there's an announcement that within 10 days, all life on Earth is going to be extinguished. What would you do? How would you spend your last 10 days? And as a thought exercise, I find these to be very useful to telling us what's important in our lives. Because as unlikely as they may be, just being able to consider it can change how we live our lives. Before I started this video, my intention was to say, let's find out, you found out that you had 10 days to live. You had an incurable disease, whatever it might be. You personally had 10 days left to live. Now, the reason I chose all people is because if a person's forced to think about what they would do as an individual, I think most folks would instantly go to, where do they want to see in the world? Where would they like to travel, right? Be like, well, I would go see, I'd fly around Europe, I'd spend all my money and go travel and see the world that I wanted to see. And I think that's all great and noble too. However, by stating that it would be a worldwide event, that insinuates that you wouldn't be going anywhere. That you may be able to drive on the highways, fine, but flights would be chaos. There would be people trying to get home from all around the world, and you wouldn't be able to have the opportunity to joyously travel around the world. Most countries would probably close their borders, and it would be chaos. But in the personal environment, the local communities, people would have the option to talk to their neighbors. They would have the option to drive up into the mountains, maybe spend their last days by a creek somewhere, which is, I'm pretty sure, what my family and I would probably do. But it makes you question kind of existence itself, but also, I guess for me, it helps me understand how I view the world. I don't think I'd be fearful. I think that I would be bummed out. Nobody wants time to end, or life to end, but I would also, with the knowledge that I have, be able to make gold out of that lead. Mental alchemy is preparing yourself for events. So in the back of my mind, I've always expected something more moderate, like a major solar flare, which the last one that put out those auroras just came back around. I think it's AR 6044 or something, but it's a big sunspot. And it's funny, those who understand the Carrington event from 1859 know what we could be in for, and probably are in for, within the next 100 years with our electric grid and the dependency on the systems that we have. And not just that, but the ability for China to hack all of our water and electric systems, which they already have. It's believed that China already has basically viruses in place in all of our major, any type of, whether it's electric or water, all of our utilities have been compromised. But it's not to be fearful. It's just to realize that a war would be a lot quicker, and it wouldn't have to do with nukes. If the power went out tomorrow, it would be devastating. But If the satellites went out because of a major solar event, you would not only not have GPS, but you wouldn't have a lot of communications. You wouldn't have any type of, you know, if the if all of the power lines went out, we'd be pretty screwed, and we might never recover from that. We're so dependent on the systems we have. And I guess this is kind of off track from the point, what would you do with your time? But I think it's important to consider, if we didn't have power, that would kind of change the way that things are. That would be a different type of apocalypse that would be much longer lived. So that's why I chose a major asteroid or something. But let me put it this way. I think a quarter of the people would spend their last days enjoying what they had with their family and friends and making the best of it, having celebrations and parties. I think a quarter of the people would um, would probably not know what to do. They might even end it themselves, or go crazy over it. And half of the people would probably just spend the whole time panicking and worrying. They'd try to prepare. They'd do everything they could. But a small percentage would go out and cause a lot of problems. There'd be a lot of looting, a lot of people breaking and stealing things. But, sure, every dad in the world has wondered what it'd feel like to grab a baseball bat and jump up and just beat a car to death. Of course, he can pay to do that. There are those fundraiser events, but I think most people aren't in need of being destructive. In other words, bringing up this thought exercise, there's a side to it that I wanted to make at the most important point. I don't believe that most people would go out and harm other people. I think there's this illusion that without stability and laws and religion, that people would just go out and harm one another. My belief is that people already harm one another. It doesn't matter what religion or belief system they are. It just has to do with the individual. And that I believe that the rate of crime and violence, if something like that were to be announced, I believe that the rate of at least personal violence, person-on-person crime and violence, would probably go up significantly, but not more than, say, 3 or 4 times. In other words, those criminals who are already out there are stealing. The ones who maybe haven't stolen anything in a while would become more brazen, and that might add 4 times more people. But still, the percentage would be relatively small, considering every American has a gun in their home. I don't know. I guess we'd make that work. Be handing those out, right? Like candy. I don't know what I'd do with my last 10 days, but I do know that my family and I would spend it all together. We'd have to play some Tripoli, play some Monopoly, some Go Fish, and then maybe we'll go out and shoot some bottles, break shit, it's hard to know what a person would do in a situation that you probably never will encounter. What do you think? What would you do if we had 10 days left as a society? I expect a very lengthy, detailed comment from every one of you. Peace out.